There's still 3 games left in the NFL season, but for me, I'm just ready for the season to be over with. And there are some people who feel the same way. Others don't feel the same way. Some people say that they like this season. This is the best season ever. Other people are saying that this season is the worst. They don't really want to talk about this season ever again. And there are others that aren't looking forward to the conference championship games this weekend. Others that aren't looking forward to it. And like myself, I don't think this is the worst year the NFL has ever had. But it's the worst season that I've ever witnessed. And there are some points that can be provided, because maybe other people feel the same way about one thing, and others will feel the same way about another. There's 4 points that I've come up with on how this could make a case for the worst season in NFL history. And the first one, it may have started last year, but it got momentum this year. And that first one, you could probably guess it. It's the national anthem protests. And what the protests did, how this made it into the worst season ever, is it brought politics into sports. Politics are supposed to cover hot button issues and try to change a country, change a community, change a society. But sports are supposed to be for entertainment, they're supposed to be fun. And for the weeks that the whole anthem was basically covered, mostly in weeks 3 through 6, when we had the whole anthem protests kind of start with all the teams locking arms or staying in the locker room or just taking a knee as a unified team. Weeks 3 through 6, those are the weeks that I just didn't have fun with this season whatsoever. Then you had people like Jerry Jones making comments about how all of his team members are going to stand or else they're not going to play. Just when you bring political issues into an entertainment, it just doesn't mix to me. It could mix to some other people, but it just doesn't mix with myself and probably the majority of the country. No, I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm not a libertarian. I'm just an independent individual. And I didn't vote in 2016, and I don't really have intent to vote in 2020 or 2024 or 2028 ever. I'm not intended to vote for anybody in 2020, and I didn't vote for anybody in 2016. So really the whole political stance on a national anthem before a sporting event just doesn't mean anything to me. And plus, if the NFL wanted to stop the whole anthem controversy, they could just have the teams in the locker rooms. I think it was up until 2008 that teams just stayed in the locker room for the national anthem, unless it was like the Super Bowl or the conference championship games. Those are the only times that I could recall that teams were out on the field for the national anthem anyways. But it was something they could have solved, but they didn't choose to solve it. That was one of the reasons why the NFL ratings have dipped in the last 2 years. Because politics were getting right into the NFL. But that's supposed to be entertaining and fun every Sunday. But it just kind of ruined it for me and a lot of people. And once again, I'm not a Democrat, Republican, or Libertarian. I'm just an individual that didn't vote in 2016 or that won't vote in 2020 either. Now, the second thing that ruined me personally and a lot of people as well is what's a catch and what isn't a catch. With the whole catch rule, how many times have we seen games in the past get decided over a catch or a momentum change was over a catch? Like, we've seen it several times this year, particularly in Patriots games. Like, people assume that this is all just set up for New England to win it all. That's not necessarily true, but some people could say it is true. In a lot of Patriots games this year in particular, how many times have we seen a catch decide a game or dictate the momentum of a game? And that's not just in Patriots games at all. It's just several games in general. How many times have we seen that where an overturned catch call dictated momentum and it shifted another way? We've seen it quite frequently over the years. And people are losing ratings because the NFL can't decide what's a catch and what isn't a catch. It makes people think that the game is just rigged and it's fixed for a certain outcome to happen. But that's just another piece of evidence. The third one, all the different star players getting injured, is kind of what could make people think it's the worst season ever. In fact, for me, I like seeing the star players. The star players are what bring the league, the NFL. That's what brings the money to the NFL, brings the ratings. Just how many star players have we had suffer season-ending injuries this year? David Johnson, Richard Sherman, Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz, Odell Beckham Jr., J.J. Watt, Ryan Shazier. Angelo didn't even play at all this year. That's just 8 star players right there that can generate a lot of... Earl Thomas was banged up all throughout the year. Just so many star players going down, it ruined the entertainment for a lot of people. And that'd be another piece of evidence that if this is the worst season in NFL history. Because it leads into the last thing, the whole conference championship weekend. And honestly, right off the bat, I see these matchups we get New England and Jacksonville and Philadelphia, Minnesota. This, to me, is a recipe for the worst conference championship weekend in NFL playoff history. And I know you can argue that last year's conference championship matches were both blowouts, but at least they had hype built around it. They had exciting hype built around it, but this year, I don't know if the hype can get as much exciting as it could last year. In particularly NFC Championship game, with the Eagles with backup Nick Foles and the Vikings with backup Case Keenum. In fact, Case Keenum could be classified as a third-string quarterback because originally Teddy Bridgewater was a starter, but then Sam Bradford was a starter last year, and so Case Keenum could be classified as a third-string quarterback at this point, even though Case Keenum is just the second string. So the NFC Championship game, we get a battle of the second-string quarterbacks. And the teams that really got there this year. Let's just talk about the 3 teams that haven't won the Super Bowl yet. Jacksonville, Philadelphia, Minnesota. This year could be that one and only opportunity to get a Lombardi trophy, at least for a long time. Because for Philadelphia, they just grinded out games week by week. The Eagles played so many close games, so many close opponents. You could argue the Eagles and Vikings both benefited from injuries for opponents. Like when they played the Panthers Thursday night, the Eagles. They didn't have Luke Kuechly. The Vikings, they were able to go through the division without Aaron Rodgers throughout the season. And it doesn't matter if the Packers had an awful offensive line. But for a team like the Packers to have Aaron Rodgers, if the Packers even were in the playoffs, they'd be the most dangerous team out there. And people sometimes, we don't watch sports for parity. We watch sports for greatness. And this year just shows the different parity. Out of the 6 teams that made the playoffs in the NFC, only one of them made it last year. And you're getting teams on the AFC side like Jacksonville, Tennessee, and Buffalo making the playoffs. So more than half of the teams that made the playoffs didn't make it the year before that. People just don't like parity. We don't watch sports for parity. Parity is fun sometimes. But is there anything that can save the NFL season with 3 games left? I was talking once again to Sam McBuckets, a really loyal viewer on the program, and he says that a Jacksonville-Minnesota matchup in the Super Bowl could save the season. In my opinion, I don't think it can. I think if we get the Jaguars and Vikings in the Super Bowl, I think we're just getting a 2012 Alabama-LSU National Championship game matchup, where it's just an offensive struggle through most of the game, punt after punt after punt. And he also brought up the whole league was decimated with injuries. That could really lead into why there was so much parity. Because let's just look at Jacksonville, Philadelphia, Minnesota. Let's just look right with Jacksonville. Even a lot of experts were saying the week that Deshaun Watson went down, the Jaguars got a gift with Deshaun Watson going down with an ACL injury in practice. The Vikings, they got a gift with Aaron Rodgers going down for missing 6 to 8 weeks, missing 6 weeks. But then, with Green Bay losing to Carolina, eliminating Green Bay from playoff contention. So the Vikings benefited from injuries this year. The Eagles, as much as they did suffer injuries throughout the year, the Eagles still kind of benefit from some injuries. They benefited from a couple of injuries throughout the season. But I'm just surprised that people are excited for these conference championship game matchups. Because if you look at it, we see Jacksonville going against New England. We see Blake Bortles. Any other season, the Jaguars are a 5-win team at the very best. Any other year, we get that. For Philadelphia, with the way they played after Carson Wentz went down, any other season, they would lose out. With the way that the Vikings have played this season, any other season, they would make the playoffs. In my opinion, the only thing that can save this season from being one of the worst ever is if New England wins the Super Bowl. That's the way I can see that, because a lot of people don't watch sports for the parity. They watch it for the greatness. And if Tom Brady were to get his 6th Lombardi trophy, he would officially go down as the greatest quarterback of all time. Then we would talk about, is Tom Brady one of the greatest athletes of all time? Could he contend for the greatest athlete of all time? That's what would happen if New England win the Super Bowl. We would not only debate the whole debate of if Tom Brady is the best of all time, that'd go away. And then we'd start up a new debate whether or not he's the greatest athlete of all time. That's just how I see it. Comment your thoughts down below. Like, share, and subscribe. See you next time. Have a great day, everyone.